This week in One Piece, we've had some crazy reveals out of EBO2, we've had some crazy market shakeups with some popular leaders rising in price, and we've had a couple of community tournaments with some unexpected winners. First up for the reveals was this new 10 cost NL. He's a 10 cost 11,000 power character without any counter. He has the Sky Island type, and he says if your leader has the Sky Island type, this character gains Rush. When attacking, you may trash one card from your hand. If your life has one or less cards, place one card from the top of your deck onto your life, then give this character plus 1,000 power for the turn, making him up to 12,000 power. This is yet another crazy top end card for NL. NL has so many top end now. You can run 16 massive characters, and all of them now searchable off of the new 2-cost event Us, that searches for 4-cost or higher cards. This is really going to help NL in the Blackbeard matchup, being a when attacking and not an on play. Gives NL an option to heal. All the other healing in NL, be it Kazakuri, Yamato, or Ace, is on play, so Blackbeard denies that. And being a 10-12 rusher is also exceptional, because even if you've got nothing else on the board, you can swing 5 with your NL, and your opponent's going to have to give you 1k counter or take their life. And then this 10 cost NL's attack, being that 12,000 power, cannot be free blocked by the 10 cost Blackbeard. Of course, the 10 cost Blackbeard can deny it from attacking, but then you just play another one. So this is an exceptional card, tailor-made really, for the Blackbeard matchup. Gonna give NL a much better time there. This is also a nice little buff to Calgara, a deck that kind of popped up right as it came out in set 8 for a little while, before swiftly dying off as we entered 8.5, with the new theme decks. Doflamingo especially really shut this deck down, but having this NL for the top end and being super searchable in Calgara, off of both the 2-cost Shudder and the 1-cost Upper Yard, could breathe a little bit of life back into this leader, and this leader was a ton of fun, so I'm hoping that Calgara can start to see a little bit of play again. Here is a sample list. Shout out to YK One Piece if you haven't followed them on YouTube already. Make sure you do. Crazy channel out of Japan, pumps out videos on these new cards faster than anyone else, and this is a sample list that they've posted on their channel. If you'd like to see how this plays out, check out their channel where they've got some gameplay of it already. And this is a sample of the Calgara from the same channel. Make sure you check them out. And they also have some Calgara gameplay up already, but you can sort of see how this fits into Calgara's curve. Once you got to those later Don plays, you really didn't have a lot to do with Calgara, so this really fills it out. And having 12 searches for this, you're going to see this. This is going to make Calgara so much more consistent. Both this card and the Us searcher are going to make those Noland Calgara combos easier to come by, and this NL is going to make you so much more resilient in that late game. Next up, we've got this 6-cost 7,000 power Yamato. She has no counter and is the Land of Wano type, and what she has is activate main once per turn. If your leader has the Land of Wano type or is Ace, give 1 rested Don to your leader. Then she gains Rush. This being able to do this every turn is so nice. So I think the most obvious leader for this is going to be the Red-Green Odin. I don't think this is going to make Red-Green Odin super meta or anything, but this is a really nice buff to this leader that is very interesting, but just not quite there. Of course, in Red-Green Odin, this card is going to have 1,000 counter, which is awesome. And on 6, you can play out Yamato, give that Don to your Odin. This fulfills the leader condition, it fulfills the Don X1 condition. So you're going to be 6,000 power leader immediately. You've got this massive 7,000 power rusher. And then in those later turns, this is going to help you fill out your curve. If you want to play an 8-cost card on 8, or a 10-cost card on 10, you can give a rested Don to your leader still, so that you fulfill that condition and go to 6,000 power, which is really cool. This also does work with Red Ace, but Red Ace I don't think is very good. It also doesn't really synergize very well with him outside of being a fairly efficient rusher. So I'm not as excited about Red Ace, but I think in Red-Green Odin, this is the type of card this deck needs. I think it still might need 1 or 2 more cards, but you know, it's something. So this is a quick list I cooked up for the Red-Green Odin featuring the new 6-cost Yamato. I think this card really fills out the curve quite nicely. You can do your 4 Don play of your Hiyori into something, then play out Yamato on 6, still have the Don for your leader effect. Then on 8, you can go into either more 5-6 costs or a dragon. Really nice. Moving on, the next reveal was for this 5-cost 6k 1k counter blocker Law. He is Heart Pirates, Dressrosa, and Supernovas. And he has blocker, and on play you can return two cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck. Then you can either draw a card, or if your opponent has 5 or more cards in their hand, they trash a card. So this is another one of these black hand attack style cards that we've been seeing more and more. The recent Pudding that came out is pretty good at that. The Perona from OP06 has a bit of hand attack, and this is another option. I do think this compares fairly unfavourably to the 5-cost Sabo. They're both blockers with the same stat line, but I do think the draw 2, trash 2, and stopping all KO effects for the turn is generally going to be better than just drawing a card or forcing your opponent to trash a card. This is clearly intended for either Usopp or Rebecca. Being Dressrosa, it makes most sense in those decks. And I think Usopp especially might get a little bit more value out of this, being a nice blocker that you can play on 5, and when he dies, you draw a card. I don't think this is going to see a ton of play though. I'm not enthused by this card, but here it is. Next up, we've got a card that I'm more enthused by, 7-cost Sengoku. He is a 7-cost 7000 1k counter, brilliant stat line. He is a blocker, and on play you can play 1 black navy type character with a cost of 4 or less from your trash as rested. So naturally this is going to be best fit in Smoker. You can play this in any black deck, but I think this makes sense most in a navy deck, and Smoker is certainly the best black navy deck at the moment. If we get more Garp buffs, maybe Garp, Mycopas, but the best 2 cards that you're naturally going to think of are Borsalino and Kuzan. These have been classic staples since 02. Kuzan getting that on-play draw a card, and Borsalino coming in and not being able to be removed is really nice. You might think that summoning Kuzan in rested kind of sucks, but don't forget that Sengoku does have blocker, so if your opponent only has 1 or 2 dudes, you can probably defend your Kuzan or your Borsalino pretty efficiently. If you've got a Jack already on the board, something like Hina could be really nice to combo with your Jack. You can use your Sengoku, summon the Hina, and then Jack is removing a 7-cost already, or an 8-cost with your leader ability, which is pretty nice into those matchups like Lucci, where their Morias can stick around and be troublesome. You can also summon Kobe. If you just need to kill a guy, you can summon him. I think if we get a bit more black navy support, which is supposedly coming in set 11, as was leaked in the product information earlier this week, this Sengoku could rise in value quite significantly. But even at the moment, with the cards we currently have, I think this is a solid card. And here's a Smoker list that I've cooked up with the Sengoku. I'm not on 4, I don't think this will be a 4 of, unless something crazy happens like Moria getting banned. But I think this does compete fairly well with Jack. I think Jack is still very important in these black decks. But Sengoku giving us a bit more options with just getting more guys on the board seems pretty compelling. Next up, we've got a 3-cost 2k power 1k counter Vivi. She is Alabaster, and on play, if your leader is multicolored and you have 5 or less cards in your hand, you get to draw 2. So your natural inclination is going to be, I'll play this in Vivi. I don't think it's actually very good in Vivi. Vivi typically has a lot of cards in her hand already, and giving this rush is worthless because it has 2000 power. Where I think this is going to shine is going to be Zoro and Sanji. It fulfills that condition of returning a dude to your hand. This is a character you love to have in your hand because it draws cards and it has counter. So I think this is pretty strong. And here is a list, again from YK One Piece, shout out to them, for the blue-green Zoro and Sanji with the new Vivi. You can see what this is going for. You can restand your Smoker, you can restand your Carrot to get extra value out of their effects, which is pretty cool. And this is just one of the best things that, as like a bounce target, that you can get. Next up, we've got this 5-cost 0 power 1000 counter Vegapunk. He has the Scientist and Egghead types, and he is a blocker, and on play, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, play 1 5-cost or lower Scientist character, then put the rest to the bottom of your deck, and if your opponent has 2 characters or less, you trash a card. So that bit at the end is a little disappointing. If you draw this in the early game, it's not going to be so great because Vegapunk struggles a lot with hand advantage. He typically has none because he has 2 life, so you don't get a lot of cards in your hand. Trashing 1 is pretty detrimental, but I think this is quite strong. In the mid to late game, once your opponent starts playing some dudes, especially if they have searchers, this removes that effect very quickly. Having that blocker and getting to summon a guy is really nice. It's going to help you protect your life a little bit more and dig deeper into your deck looking for those cards that you need, be that a Lilith Searcher or a Shaka blocker. Do note this only summons scientists, this does not summon Egghead. You can't summon things like the 5-cost Nami or the 5-cost Luffy. You are limited to these Vegapunk forms, as I understand they are in the anime. You also summon York, but nobody's summoning York, that card sucks. But yeah, these are the 5 guys that you're mainly going to summon with this Vegapunk. I think he's pretty cool. And again, shout out to YK One Piece, here is their list of the Vegapunk with this new card. I think this lends itself quite well to the aggro go wide strategy of Vegapunk, and don't forget you get to play this out for 1 Don, which is pretty insane. Next up, we've got this Arlong. He is a 3/4/1k with the Fishman, East Blue, and Arlong Pirates types. On play, if your leader has the Fishman or East Blue type, give 1 rested Don to your leader. Already fairly solid. Then, up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less cannot be rested until the end of your opponent's next turn. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've had a card with this exact text before. There's also some slightly different translations going around on Twitter. Some people have been translating this as a freeze effect, similar to the OP08 carrot, but I've looked at the Japanese characters. I don't speak Japanese, but this doesn't match the carrot. These are completely different. And at the end here, you can see it does say Resto ni dekinai. Now, I believe this means cannot be rested, which would fit with this translation. If you are a native Japanese speaker or have learnt it a lot better than me, please let me know, but I'm going to be going with this translation at the moment. Now, where this gets a little bit complicated is I'm not exactly sure until we get an official translation and some official rulings what this means, and if you know, let me know in the comments, please. I'm always looking to expand my knowledge. When it says they can't be rested, does this mean that a blocker can't block? Because you have to rest the character to activate the blocker, right? You also have to rest to attack. So I'm assuming this is like really strong. I'm assuming that this is going to turn off the blocker effectively and turn off their attack for the turn, which is pretty crazy for these aggro decks like Arlong and Kuro. This both provides one of the Dons that Arlong needs for his leader effect, and is also an East Blue type character, so Kuro can rest him to fulfill his leader effect. But yeah, I think this card's going to be pretty strong in both of these decks. Unfortunately, doesn't have a trigger, so you can't play out with Arlong's effect, but just being able to deny one of their blockers for the turn is really nice. I don't think this is particularly an early game play, so it's not going to fill out your 3-Don curve, but if you play this towards the end of the game to shut down one of their blockers, fulfill some of your leader's costs, seems pretty nice to me. And in second news for Arlong and Kuro, we have this Buggy. He is a 4/6 Buggy Pirates and East Blue type character, not a Warlord of the Sea, and not a cross guild, interestingly. On play, if you do not have another Buggy character in play, one of your leaders gains double attack. So this is very reminiscent of the OP06 Onami that granted banish to your leader, or one of your characters. This does only grant it to your leader, but honestly, that's fine because we have some pretty crazy leaders here that can do some pretty crazy things. He also has a trigger to rest a 4, which is fine, but lets you play him out with Arlong. So as early as your 3-Don turn, you can put 2-Don on Arlong, attack in, tap 1, play out Buggy, and then you've got a 7 double attack that your opponent is very heavily incentivized to counter out of, but then that's going to cost them a lot of cards. And then on the next turn, you could do something else, maybe play out an Onami, grant banish this time, and this Buggy is just a 4/6 stat line, which is great. It's a great stat line. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any counter, but, you know, it is what it is. And in a deck like Kuro, this could make for some pretty crazy plays, because Kuro is all about restanding himself, with this activate main effect, of course, and with Out of the Bag. This does fulfill one of his resting 2 East Blue characters' costs, and granting double attack and then attacking in twice. That's pretty crazy. You're going to get one of those double attacks through, and this is also going to make your opponent give you a bunch of cards out of their hand. And Kuro's effect resting their blockers is also just so good. So I do think this is a nice buff. I don't think it's going to make either of these leaders crazy meta, but having these two cards, both this and the Arlong, could make these leaders a little bit stronger. And here is a sample list for the Arlong. You can see it's playing both the Buggy and the Arlong. I'm not sure how good this leader is going to be, but he's pretty fun. Now, a little less exciting is this new Sabo. He is a 4/5 2k, which is pretty nice stat line, and he has Activate Main. You can rest him and grant one of your Revolutionary Army characters, not leaders, characters, other than Sabo, 2000 power. So that's fairly generic, but it does interact well with some of the Revolutionary Army characters that need a certain power threshold to get their effects. So I'm thinking Karasu, I'm thinking Morley, and I'm thinking Lindbergh. But I don't think this card is too crazy. I think the main draws of this card is being a 2k in red that says Revolutionary Army. He is also Dressrosa, but I'm not sure that's very relevant. I think these are the leaders that are going to get the most use out of him. Of course, these Revolutionary Army leaders. It gives you a little bit of consistency in the Sabo deck because this can be searched with the Three Brothers Bond and the 1-cost Garp. I think Red-Black Sabo is not going to make much use out of this, to be honest. Bello Betty, probably not either. Your 2Ks in that are pretty set in stone. You've got the Koala for a bit of power reduction. You've got the Kuma for a trigger body. And your next 2k, potentially you run one or two of these just to be a searchable 2k. But I'm not crazy on this card. But here we are. He's here regardless. Next up, we've got some blue Whitebeard Pirates cards. It's all but confirmed that the starter deck 22, which is the next one after the red Luffy, is going to be some kind of blue Whitebeard themed deck. Some people are theorizing it's going to be Marco and Whitebeard together, or Ace and Whitebeard together, which is pretty cool. I really like those dual leader cards, really interesting, like the Zoro and Sanji. Makes some pretty cool artwork too. But this is a blue Vista. He is a 4/5 1k with the Whitebeard Pirates type, and on play you bottom 1000 power character. I don't think this card's too great. 1000 is a very low threshold to get your opponent's character to. You could play Round Table, I guess, to do minus 10,000, but that seems pretty underwhelming. With the Marco leader effect, it does raise to 3000, which is a little more relevant, hitting most chump blockers, hitting 2-cost Teach, which is notable. I do think this compares fairly poorly to, for example, the 5-cost Marco that just KOs a 3000. Bottoming isn't that relevant on these really low power units, but this could just be in the waiting room for starter deck 22. Once we know what that new Whitebeard themed leader does, maybe this could come and be quite relevant. Next up for Whitebeard support is this Ace. He's a 5/5 1k, has the Alabaster and Whitebeard Pirates types. And what he has is on play, if your leader's types include Whitebeard Pirates, so you're already leader locked, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, find a 2-cost and put it in your hand, then you bottom the rest and play a 2-cost as rested. So this is reminiscent of the classic Ohm Holy, except instead of searching for a specific card, you're just searching for a 2-cost. So we've already seen Marco make pretty good use out of the Ivankov engine. I think this compares fairly poorly to the Ivankov, because that Ivankov, whilst being a much lower static unit, did give you that constant pressure of a draw when he attacked, so your opponent was much more worried about getting rid of that. I don't think this Ace is very scary once it's on the board. Just a 5000 power unit is not too scary, but can get you quite a bit of efficiency, getting maybe a blocker like a Fossa or a Duval, getting a Haruta to get a bit of value out of your Don, maybe even a Pudding or a Dan. I've also put blue-yellow Ace here, but I think we've already got another couple of blue Aces, so I don't think you would ever play this card in a deck like blue-yellow Ace, but, you know, you could. You could. And again, once we get that new blue Whitebeard deck, maybe there's going to be a really strong 2-cost that we've got to find, and this can help us get there. Next up, we've got a 3-cost Frankie. He's a 3-cost, 4000 power card. He is a purple card, as you can't really see that in this image. He's got 1000 counter, Water 7 and Straw Hat crew types. And he says, on play when attacking, if your leader has the Straw Hat crew type, and the number of your Don cards is equal to or less than your opponent, you ramp a Don as rested. This is okay. I think this is quite a nice synergy with the new Monkey D. Luffy leader, And if you don't remember what he does, he's green-purple, and his activate main once per turn. You can do Don -2. If you only have Straw Hat Crew type characters in play, which Frankie is Straw Hat Crew, you restand 2 of your rested Don, then the leader gains 1000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn, giving you quite a nice bit of defense, which is drastically needed in these 4-life leaders. 4-life leaders with no defense are not typically very good, but this buffing your leader for your opponent's turn is getting more and more prevalent with the black-yellow Luffy, and then the red-green Odin, both having this effect, and now green-purple Luffy can do the same, which is pretty cool. And then once you've done that Don -2, you can put one of those active Dons on your Frankie and swing in with him to ramp 1 back. And here is a sample deck list of the green-purple Luffy. You can see it is choosing to play 4 of this new Frankie. It's basically a different option. If you don't have the Zorojiro, which is quite nice in a deck like this to get that ramp, you can play this. You can also play it off of Luffy Taro, although you probably wouldn't want to. But I do think this card has a little bit of promise in this Luffy deck specifically. Outside of this deck, I don't think this is very good. This compares quite poorly to the 3-cost Pudding, but with this leader basically being locked to only playing Straw Hat Crew characters, it's fine. It's fine. It's what we've got, right? Okay, moving on. We have this terrible Bluno. He is a 5/6 1k CP9 type. Activate main, you may discard 1 card from your hand and put this character in the trash. Then you summon a 5-cost or lower character with CP in the types from your trash. I mean, your main targets are going to be 4-cost Lucci or 5-cost Kaku, but why are we doing this? Compare this to the 5-cost Kuzan that Blackbeard is getting in set 10. It's night and day. The Kuzan draws you a card and can't be KO'd or removed from the board by any effects, which is crazy. This trashes a card and can be removed from the board by an effect. We're never playing this. Okay, next up, got a very brief market watch section of this video, mainly going over the changes caused by those new cards revealed. So the biggest one, it's got to be the NL, right? The 10-cost NL. And yellow cards, especially those played in NL, have spikes. They've spiked a lot. I would be careful when purchasing any of these. We do know that NL is going to be good in EBO2. He's already pretty good still right now, but I would be careful buying at a time when hundreds of other people are buying, because the prices are going to get a bit crazy. But this is definitely going to be somewhat of a permanent increase. First card here, Alt Leader NL. This was sitting at like $30 back in October when NL was not very popular. It rose a little bit with some results coming out from both the West and the East. And then, as you can see, it was sitting around 45. And then we got the reveal. We got the reveal of the NL on Boxing Day. And since then, it's gone up to $70. There's currently, I believe there's 2 at $70. Then you're up to $80. So if you're an NL fan and you don't have the leader, what are you doing? But I would consider watching the price on this before purchasing. Any of these cards that I'm going to highlight today, I think the prices have gone a little bit crazy because of the hype. This will die down a bit, but I don't see it going back. Certainly not to that $30 value, and probably not even to the $40 value. I think this is probably a decent pickup around $50 or $55. But hey, NL, he's here to stay. Maybe he'll be tier 0 in EBO2, who knows. Next card I want to talk about is this Shirahoshi blocker. This is another EBO1 classic. I am a bit of a fool on this one. I've only got 2 of these, which I'm a bit bummed out about. Going to need to try and find at least 1 more, preferably 2 more, as soon as possible. And for these cards, you can look at the alts. They're doing similar things. I'm not going to cover the alts because this is just a brief section. But yeah, I mean, $26 for this card is ridiculous. This is frankly insane, and it rapidly goes up to 30, right? There's only a few at this low price. It's lower price. But yeah, I mean, look, like back in October, this was $3. Why didn't we all buy them then? Who's to say? But yeah, this was rapidly rising. Hit 15 in December, and now it's up to 30 nearly. This is crazy. This card is a staple in an L. People are playing between 2 and 4 at the moment, and once we get the new NL card, I suspect this might rise to just being a 4 of. This is an EBO1 card. Be careful, don't leave it too late, but I do think this price is a little crazy at the minute. Next up, we've got more yellow cards. This is just going to be mostly a yellow market watch. Katakuri starting to rise again. This is the reprint. The regular version is sitting at around the same price. There's not a lot of difference. But yeah, this was around $10 when PRB01 came out. Gone up, we're now at 14. I do think this might fall a little bit again, but I'd be careful with this. $14 is a really reasonable price for Katakuri. We saw what this was like before, right? This was $80 at one point. It was sort of $40, $50 for a long time. Only PRB that cut this thing's price. And if PRB stops getting reprinted, who's to say? But either way, I would be careful again buying these. But this is honestly one of the less ridiculous prices in the video today. Next up, Nami. This is the 5-cost Nami. This is a staple in an L again. This is the best of those sort of 5-drop killer dude cards in NL specifically. Godatsu is competing, but this always says that hitting a 5 is really nice, and having that trigger is great into those Doflamingo matchups. But yeah, this has been sort of on the rise since it came out. We were at like 4, went down to 3. That's pretty crazy, $3. I didn't get them for as cheap as that. Wow. But either way, now we're up, getting to 8. There's one here for surprisingly cheap at sort of 7. But yeah, then, I mean, like, we got 9, 9, 9. I think this is one of those cards that you want to get sooner rather than later. This is from set 8, which people don't want to open set 8 because it's the alts. A lot of them are really bad. The leaders all kind of suck. But, you know, this Nami is a really good card, and it's got that Nami tax. Being a Nami, all the Kumas buying this out, but I'd consider buying this sooner than later if you're going to play an L. If you're not going to play an L, who cares? Next up, I want to talk about Calgara. I think Calgara is still quite reasonable. $30 is not bad for an alt-art leader. It's not as cheap as it has been, right? It was down at $20. But 30 is still not bad. There is only one at that price. Then we're up to sort of 36. But it is what it is. This is getting a bit more hype because of the 10-cost NL, of course. If you picked up one of these for $20, good shit, man, good shit. But yeah, at 30, I think this is still fairly reasonable. Though I should say this is 35, because this person's charging $5 shipping. Next up, 10-cost Ace. 10-cost Ace been on the rise for a little bit, same as most of these other yellow cards. Now up pretty much to $30. There's only one at that price point even. A lot of these are getting to $40. I think 40 is too much for this card. I think sort of 25 is where I'd be looking to pay. And I would have probably bought this in December if I hadn't earlier on. I bought these ages ago when they first came out to play my NL deck. But yeah, if you don't have the aces, I'm sorry. Keep an eye on this one. I think the price will drop a little bit. And then might be a good time to snag these before we get starting to get results out of Japan. Because once we start getting Japanese results, that's when these prices start to rise again. Arlong. This was incredibly unexpected. I mean, look at this. This guy has been $30 for ages. Nobody's been buying this. And to be honest, there's not been a lot of sales of this card, but the cheapest is $75. I'm not sure if this is market manipulation, someone buying all of them, or if people are just taking their listings down or raising the price because of the new reveals. This is incredibly overpriced. Do not buy this card. This is a $30 leader, right? This leader is not good. And if I'm at all honest, I don't think the new reveals are going to make this leader good. They will make him better, but yeah, I think $30 or $40 is reasonable for this. Don't buy this for $75. Kuro, I think he's also a little overpriced. He was like 15 for ages, right? And now he's shot up to 40. Again, same as with Arlong, I don't know if this is market manipulation or just people taking their listings down to increase the price. But I think 40 is more reasonable than Arlong, but I still don't think it's great. This leader's not been good since OP09 came out. I think OP09 4.5, once we got the bans, was the last time Kuro was good. Don't quote me on that, but here we are. Yeah, I don't think 40 is a great price for this. I think sort of 25 is where I'd be looking to pay if you're a Kuro fan. Last card is Mr. 1. I highlighted this ages ago. One of the first videos I did on the channel was a market watch. I've not done one for a long time. It might bring them back somewhat soon, but yeah, this Mr. 1, I believe when I highlighted it, was sort of around these low prices, right? But now he's $20, so yeah, if you're a Buggy fan, sorry. But yeah, this is starting to rise in Europe as well. If you're a European and you want to play Buggy, I would get these sooner than later. But Yeah, $20 is crazy. Don't buy this. There's a rare version that you can pick up for like $1. So, moving on to the tournament report part of this video. We didn't have any majors this week, obviously because everyone was celebrating Christmas and New Year, but we did have a few smaller community tournaments, and I'd like to highlight some of the results of those. First up, we had this 80-player tournament, the Kronos Championship. This was held, I believe, over in Italy. And this was plugged a lot on Twitter by Luigi Amato. Make sure you follow him. And the winner of this one was Roberto Rondino with his Blackula Luffy deck. You can check out his list here. The main takeaway, I think, is the introduction of Kingdom Come. Really good in that Shanks matchup for dealing with their big bodies. Really nice in the Blackbeard matchup for dealing with Blackbeard. Although that matchup is still pretty rough. But yeah, a lot of people choosing to play this Kingdom Come now in the Blackula Luffy, which is pretty cool to see. And the top 8 of this tournament was 3 Blackula Luffy, 2 Lucci, 2 Shanks, 1 Teach. Interestingly, no Doflamingo and no Purple Luffy, which are 2 decks that I had certainly had as some of the best decks in this format. But, you know, this is a pretty small sample size. Maybe people are still getting used to the new Purple Luffy builds. But yeah, seeing no Doflamingo in this top cut was pretty surprising. Although there's a lot of Blackula Luffy and a lot of Lucci, so maybe that makes some sense. And the second tournament I'd like to highlight was a tournament run by Wimmy Bear. This was a sim tournament, and they had around 50 or 60 players. So again, not the biggest, but still a decent sample size. And the winner of this one was actually Nami, which is quite surprising. A lot of people thought Nami was going to fall off a lot, with both Blue Doflamingo and Purple Luffy becoming more popular in this format. However, as you can see here by the matchups, if you just dodge Blue Doflamingo, you can have a pretty good day with Nami. Shanks is a pretty tough matchup into Nami, very favourable for the Nami. Shanks just a little bit too slow. They have those rush units like Dragon, but once you've got to your 8 or 10 non-turns, Nami's milled through so many cards now. This new 1-cost Nami is crazy for the deck, and it's interesting to see more and more of the Boodle creeping into people's decks, which is pretty cool to see. Being that nice 1k counter, but also a blocker that mills when it dies, whether by an effect or by blocking, is really cool. It's a little bit easier to find time to play than the Marguerite, and it has a similar effect, if not as good. But yeah, you can see the matchups here. 1 Purple Luffy, be interesting to see how that matchup went. That matchup seemed pretty horrendous for Nami in my testing, but who knows, maybe he's figured it out. One of the Rush Usopp as well was pretty funny, it's pretty funny. Maybe that caught the Purple Luffy player off guard. I could see that happening. But either way, congratulations to Burrito for winning that tournament there. Make sure you follow both Wimmy and Burrito on X. Next up, new products this week. Over in Asia, this was the one new product that got released this week. This is the Premium Booster, the reprint storage box set. So this is a little box that you can store your cards in, and it comes with a bonus pack and 5 PRB01 boosters. Pretty cool. We're getting a little bit of a reprint of PRB01. I know some of those alt arts have been creeping up in value, especially the gold dons. If you're after gold dons, I'd potentially get them sooner rather than later. But these are the 7 cards that you can get in this box. You're going to get 1 pack with 2 cards. You're going to get 2 of these. And you've got some pretty cool ones, right? You've got the 4/6 Uta blocker from the new Uta starter deck. You've got the 4/6 Boa blocker that is killing it in Dofi. You've got the 7-cost Kid from ST10, which has been in a bit of dire need of a reprint. This is slowly creeping up in price. If you don't have these, and you like playing decks like RP Luffy, I would consider picking these up, but this reprint could drive down the price, so who knows. We've got the 1-cost Nami from Starter Deck 1. This card is, I think, going to get a little bit more popular with the red Nika starter deck coming out, fulfilling that leader requirement, being a cheap body that is less and less removable as black decks sort of wane from the spotlight. Is pretty cool. We also have a really nice alt art of the Spandine that is popular in Lucci decks. This one's sick. I really like this. I'm definitely picking up a couple of these from a Lucci deck. And one of the benefits of this is you don't need 4. We also have another alt art of the 4-cost Lucci. That makes like, what, 3 now? We have the SP, we have the regular alt art, and now we have this. I don't think this is needed. I think my favourite is honestly still the regular one, but the SP is very nice too. And we also have the Egghead Bonnie, the 3-cost Bonnie, that when she has a doll on her and your opponent loses a life, you get to draw 2 trash 1. This one's not too crazy. I'm not a huge fan of the ult on this one. I think my favourites are definitely going to be the Spandine and the Boa. Last up, we just have a small news update on the French version of One Piece TCG. So, especially relevant if you live in France, but the whole of Europe is going to be able to use these cards, and your deck can consist of a mixture of English and French. A little bit surprising that this isn't legal in Canada, because as you know, I mean, Quebec's pretty big, and there's a lot of French speakers there. So, and I know other games that have French versions allow that for use in Canada. So that's a little bit of a shame, I think, but a big buff for all the Europeans. Maybe you can get cards a little bit cheaper. Typically, these non-English language cards, like French or Italian, tend to be a little bit cheaper, purely because the Americans can't use them. So, pretty nice for us. We might be getting a little bit of a price decrease. And that's it for this week. Good luck at US Nats this weekend if you're going. I will not be going, as it's quite a long way. But to anyone competing, best of luck. I hope you win. I hope to see some spicy deck lists coming out. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your week.